you can't expect life to be easy. It's going to get tough, and you'll have to overcome adversities. And if you're doing it while knowing that you're on the right path, then it's that much worth it.
Welcome to the Agile Digital Transformation Podcast, where we explore different aspects of digital transformation and digital experience with your host, Tim Butera, Content and Community Manager at AgileDrop.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm joined today by returning guest Rick Yvanovich, the author of Business as Unusual and founder of the professional services firm TRG International. In the first episode that we did together with Rick, we had a really great conversation about the need to become future fit and embrace change in today's society. And we'll link to that conversation in the show notes. And so both Rick and I were super excited about doing another conversation where we can maybe expand upon some of the main points from the original chat and bring you more great insights. So Rick, welcome. It's really great having you back on the podcast. Do you want to add anything, or should we just dive right into our conversation?
Tim, well, first, thanks for having me back. I must have done something right. Or you're really hard up and you can't find any more guests. Anyway, before we start, I really have to again share my core belief, something I hold really, really dear. And that's the fact that we all have the potential to be architects of change. I know I talked about this last time, but maybe some of your listeners have forgotten, or maybe it's the first time you're listening. Okay, so I'll repeat it. We all have the potential to be architects of change. So in this era where we all live in on planet Earth, which is defined by constant transformation, our task isn't just to keep up, try to keep our head above water, but to actively shape the path forward. Okay, every day, our actions, big or small, actually shape our future. And as we discuss other stuff today, Tim, it might be old stuff, which we're going to go into again, or it could be new stuff. I still want everyone listening to remember this. You are your brand, and every single decision that you make is part of the unique story that you are crafting for yourself. Okay, and it's not just listeners, it's me as well, Rick. It's me, Rick, and it's also you, Tim. Okay, so how you react, how you adapt, and how you innovate in the face of change will define your story and your legacy. And it's this belief, okay, that is inspiring each of us. I believe each of us are really aiming for a consistently higher achievement. Okay, I said that last time, but it's not just a higher achievement, it's also higher fulfillment, okay, is the cornerstone of my work and my life purpose. That's where I'm coming from. So as we dive into our conversation today, let's not just think about adapting to change, but about how we can define it. All right. And after all, as we embrace our unique qualities and strive for that personal growth, we're not just participants, but catalysts in our ever-changing business as unusual world. So, Tim, let's get started. And to get started, before you can say anything, all right, you introduced me. I have a few questions about you. So could I ask you a few questions, Tim?
Oh, we're going to turn the tables this time? Oh, okay, I love that, Rick. I'm totally up for that.
Okay, I looked at your LinkedIn profile again, and I know you work for this company, AgileDrop. Okay, you're a podcast host. Yes, you are hosting me here for the second time, maybe, but you're also the content and community manager. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I'm really curious on why you're even hosting this podcast in the first place when you're the content and community manager.
Well, that's a great question, Rick, and there's quite a story behind it. Originally, we were heavily involved as AgileDrop in different open source communities, namely Drupal and WordPress, which we're still active in, especially Drupal, but WordPress less so now. And I was doing a lot of interviews with community members about their experiences with these open source platforms. I was participating in, I was contributing in my own free time to the Promote Drupal initiative. I was also, for a time, I was part of the WordPress marketing contribution initiative. So that was kind of the community management aspect of it. And then it was also like, for a time, I was also more responsible for the HR part of our marketing. So kind of building the communities in our local area and kind of attracting local developers here and organizing events and meetups and courses and stuff like that. And then from, we started doing, I mentioned that we were doing interviews, and they were originally written interviews. But we figured that it was easier for the guests if we were to record the interview and then edit it as an article. And we started to notice more and more that actually people were kind of disappointed when we told them that this is going to be an article and not a podcast. That was in 2020. And so I figured, a lot of people that we're interviewing are actually really keen on doing a podcast and on being podcast guests. So why not start a podcast? Why not do it? Because everybody's working from home. They have the time to listen to it. They want, everybody wants good quality content. So if you get good quality guests and produce good quality conversations, that's going to be a win-win for everybody. And so we decided that we wanted to do a more broader technological business leadership angle rather than just focus strictly on like the stuff that we posted on our blog about Drupal and about web development. So that's how the original idea for Agile Digital Transformation came to be. And yeah, here we are now, almost 4 years later and about 130 episodes later, and we're still going strong.
Wow. Okay. Two things that you mentioned triggered the next two questions. The first one is, you said you got more involved in the HR part of marketing. I didn't quite understand that. What does that mean? Tell me more about that.
So our marketing is kind of split into two parts. So one part is the sales-oriented marketing, so the client-side marketing. And then the other part of the marketing is, concentrated on communicating our values, communicating what the business is like, and, producing maybe blog posts that are more HR-oriented, organizing these events and courses that were also kind of, it's not that the goal was to, we were organizing the courses to get employees, but it was like a really great way to, both provide learning opportunities for people who would not get them otherwise. Everything was free. And then, we met a lot of great people from the courses that, some of them joined our team or some of them collaborated with us later on. So that's what the HR part was kind of all about. And there was probably more stuff, but that was a long time ago. And we've done a lot of different stuff since then.
Okay, all right. I'd probably classify that myself as employer branding.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
So, you do all these activities. It's not directly related to trying to market or sell anything, but it's just positioning yourselves, positioning your organization, which is Agile Drop, into be just a good place to be.
Yeah. That's the gist of it, yeah.
Okay. Now, another thing you said, things have changed. You started off in this sort of community role and content, and it was interviewing people and writing articles. And then you said people got disappointed. What's an article? And the podcast thing emerged. So is that, I know it's an evolution, it's a transformation over the last, 4 years or so. Was that a smooth journey?
Well,
or have there been a few disasters along the way?
Well, disasters is maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but obviously, as with everything in the digital, with all the moving parts and all the changes in society, in the tech landscape, everything coinciding with personal changes and personal developments and self-actualization and personal growth. I mean, taking all of this into account, I must say that it's been rather smooth, actually. You know, there was some personal difficulties lately that were making it a little more difficult and a little more stressful. But, you know, I'm really committed to having a high degree of professionalism, of providing a great experience for everybody. And so I always try to put that first. But yeah, that maybe comes at the cost of like some potential burnout issues or something like that. So then it's always, you know, it's never smooth. It's never completely smooth, but I would say that given all of the context and all of the different aspects and elements that I just mentioned, it could have been much less smoother.
Okay. All right. Now, what do you like best about what you actually are doing?
Oh, well, Rick, it's connecting with people like you and having awesome
Oh.
conversations with people like you and also connecting people. You know, one of the best things is like when a guest of the podcast tells me that, oh yeah, I really love this episode that you did with another guest, and then maybe we can do some collaboration involving both of the guests. And you know, it's just I love connecting with people and I love connecting people, and I think that this is like in line with my life mission and my life purpose. And if I can do it like as part of Agile Drop, then that's awesome.
Oh, okay. You talk about if it's in alignment with your life purpose. Okay. So can I ask you, if you don't mind, what is your life purpose?
Well, I've actually just discovered this recently. It was also in connection with my castle that we discussed during the first conversation that we had. And you asked me if I can describe my castle to you. And I told you, I promised you that I'll do it next time. So maybe we can revisit that. But I
Absolutely.
discovered that it was just that, you know, it's connecting people and making connections in the face of adversity, you know, connecting with people that you know you may disagree on some really important issues or important points, but trying to go beyond that, you know, and trying to kind of see the humanity in everybody and also give your own humanity to others and just be, you know, be what you needed when times were really dark for you and try to be that for other people.
Beautiful. So if you had to condense that into a single sentence, what would your life purpose be?
I guess be the lighthouse for everyone.
Oh, the lighthouse. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Why a lighthouse? What made you pick lighthouse over any other structure?
Well, it's something that stands tall, even when, you know, that stands tall and is like a beacon for everybody who is lost and people who are lost, like in dark times when they need the light the most. So that's why, you know, because if I just said be the light, that would be too broad, I think. So be the lighthouse, be the beacon that can help guide people out of their darkness, out of their storms, out of their, you know, what's the word I'm looking for, like shipwreck or something like that.
Okay. And now this life purpose has become more clear to you as a result of the previous conversation we had on our last podcast, and you think about your castle. How's it affected your life since then, since you've come up with this?
It's been, you know, sometimes it's been difficult having to accept that and, you know, maybe having to put some other desires and needs on the backtrack to kind of focus on this. But it's also been very fulfilling knowing what to do and how to do it. And then as you do it, you get confirmation that you're on the right track, that you're doing well. You know, one of the things that I did very closely or very shortly after we recorded our first conversation was we were supposed to have our high school reunion, like the 10th anniversary of our graduation in 2021. So during the heaviest lockdowns, and of course we skipped it, but we started hanging out with some friends from high school like in the past few years. And I just spontaneously organized like a spontaneous high school reunion after 13, 12 years. And it was like, you know, one Thursday we were like, oh yeah, let's do it. And then the next Thursday we already met. And, you know, that was kind of in line with that. I saw that, you know, I wasn't maybe the most popular kid in the class. I wasn't the most popular kid at school, which was I that was the initiator of, this reunion that we completely skipped. And that's when I really realized that, this, like, that's before I kind of started realizing it, but that's when it was confirmed to me that yes, this is what your life should be about, connecting people. And even when it's tough, even if it's sometimes, if things were happening at such a frantic pace, even though there were good things, it was kind of leading to burnout. I still had that satisfaction, I still had that fulfillment, even though I needed rest, even though I needed a break from everything. It's still very fulfilling to know what the purpose is, even if it's tough, because if it's tough, you can't expect life to be easy. It's going to get tough, and you'll have to overcome adversities. And if you're doing it while knowing that you're on the right path, then it's that much worth it.
Yeah. Now compare that if you were on the wrong path,
Yeah,
it is
exactly.
not an alignment, then you don't have that extra energy.
Yeah,
So this is also the concept, around flow. Okay. When you're in the zone, when things you're doing in alignment, you find that extra energy. It doesn't matter if you're a little bit tired. It's irrelevant. It's no different for, oh yeah, we're gonna have to get up early. Yeah, that's because we're gonna get on a plane and we're gonna fly to some nice beach somewhere. Yeah, okay, so what? Let's do it. Okay, so it all makes sense, and that's why the alignment is so important. Now, how did your schoolmates react when you self-described yourself? You weren't the most popular person, okay? And here you are arranging a get-together.
Well, it was surprisingly awesome, because in retrospect, I saw that maybe I was kind of more popular and more loved than I thought initially. Maybe I just had like a poor self-confidence during that time. Basically, I got so much love from my classmates, from my former classmates, during that meetup. Everybody was giving me love. They were toasting me basically. And one of the former classmates, who was probably one of the most popular kids in class, he asked me, "Tim, are you a genius? Because I always thought that you were a genius." Because, I remembered everybody's birthday, like to the exact date. So we had a really great time. Everybody was like thankful for, everybody was thanking me for organizing it, for contacting them. And even though I had a lot of help from another classmate who contacted like half of the class, he gave me full credit for the idea and everything. So it was really, really well received. And I just, the only regret I have was not staying longer, because I was super tired and I just wanted to, I wanted to get together. Then I had to go home and get some rest.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Okay, what I also heard there is that people there, like that most what that person that you saw as one of the most popular kids, as it were,
Hmm.
came up to you and saying that they always, they sort of believed in you. All
Hmm.
right, and yet earlier, you say you framed all of this saying that you weren't one of the most popular kids, so you did not believe in yourself.
Yeah, I think I had a lot of problems with believing in myself, and that kind of persisted, up until a few years ago. And it was actually through this self-actualization
Mm,
process and through the
mm,
realization of what my life purpose is, that I got this drive and this self-confidence back.
mm,
And
mm,
and then I started to realize how, to put it bluntly, how stupid it was that I didn't have the self-confidence before. But it was a journey, I guess. I think that I
mm,
did a lot of stuff in the past years that
mm,
I can really say that I'm
mm,
proud of. I'm really proud
mm,
of organizing
mm,
this meetup. I'm
mm,
proud of doing, 130 successful episodes of the podcast. I'm proud of
mm.
connecting with people like you and having awesome conversations with people like you. And it's just kind of, I've kind of built myself up, I think.
So it goes back to, the importance, and we touched on that last time, and it's in the
Hmm.
book, of the importance of having a light purpose. So
Hmm.
it's a bit, yeah, you've used the lighthouse. Yeah, it's showing you the way. Like,
Hmm.
don't go that way, you're gonna hit the rocks. And you're a ship,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
need to go this other way. All right. So it is sort of lighting the path, making the path clearer. And as long as you know where you're going, then it's just easy to get there. If you
Hmm.
don't know where you're going, like, Alice or the Cheshire Cat said to Alice, well, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will do.
Hmm.
Now, the other thing, I'll go back to this fact that other people saw something in you, and they even mentioned to you at that event, hey, we always saw this in you, and yet you didn't have that self-confidence. Another way to reframe that is a bit like imposter syndrome.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
you have the skill sets, but you don't think you have the skill sets. You don't think you can do it, but you obviously have it in spades. I mean, 135 episodes, you've created this podcast, it's all successful. Do you think you've overcome now any shadows left from imposter syndrome and not being able, not believing in yourself?
Oh, I think there's always going to be shadows when the going gets a bit tougher. And also I had a really great conversation recently on the podcast about, if you have imposter syndrome, that means that you're surrounded by people who are more skilled than you and who are able to teach you a lot of invaluable lessons that people who are less. So if you didn't have imposter syndrome, there would be less growth and less personal and business development. So
Mm,
I guess, a certain degree of imposter syndrome is a good thing if you can balance that
mm,
out with believing in yourself. So I think that, I still have days where I think that maybe I'm way over my head in something, where I think that maybe I'm not capable. But then I remember that usually this is just because I contrast that with like the high level of professionalism that I otherwise bring to the table.
mm,
So anything that's like, that would still be really great is because I'm kind of a perfectionist and I kind of really push
mhm,
myself to do the best that I can and to provide the best experience for everybody. If there's, something that's great but kind of below my standards, that's when I might start, doubting myself again. But it's gotten very, very much easier for me to remind myself that, look, you've done all this, you have this thing that you can be really proud of. Other people are confirming this for you. You've never had more positive feedback than now. So it's easier and quicker to get out of potential imposter syndrome ruts now than it
mm,
was, 2 or 5 or 10 years ago.
mm. Interesting. Imposter syndrome. Typically, this is stereotypically, so it's a broad generalization. So let's take this with a pinch of salt. Perfectionists tend to have imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
Okay. And the problem with perfectionists is, I'm a perfectionist as well, unfortunately. We're neglecting or we're ignoring the fact that good enough
Hmm.
is actually good enough. Okay. That perfectionism can stimulate maybe imposter syndrome. And there's an upward positive spiral to imposter syndrome, which is if we feel that we're not worthy, if we feel we're not good enough, then what we tend to do is to get better.
Hmm.
We work doubly, triply, quadruply hard to get even better. But we're already good enough, and like, okay, maybe there's a very marginal no return back up there. So it's really accepting that good enough is good enough.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're
Um,
striving for perfect, then you might miss the good enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you've done 135 plus podcasts. Are you seeing any trends in the podcast that you're doing and the type of guests that you're interviewing?
Well, we started off with more technical topics and more development oriented topics, and then we kind of transitioned to more topics related to leadership, to business, to like topics such as imposter syndrome, related to
Mm,
self-actualization,
mm,
change, just digital transformation in general, or specific, just maybe really popular episodes then turned out to be, maybe something related to company culture and how that relates to digital transformation. And over the past year and a half, obviously, since the generative AI and broader AI explosion, we've had a lot of topics that were related or focused heavily on AI. A lot of the times, even if like AI wasn't the angle or the title, we couldn't avoid not talking about AI. It was always like, it's always, I think now it's kind of intrinsically connected with digital transformation. And so as agile digital transformation, it's almost inevitable to talk about AI. So this has been the biggest trend over the past year. But there's so many different topics, so many different angles. You might talk with somebody who's an AI enthusiast, but they're kind of reserved about the potential of AI. And then you might have somebody who's worked with AI for half of their life and they're really excited about AGI. And it's really awesome to have these different perspectives and kind of also not just provide awesome insights and awesome conversations to our audiences, but also learn a lot from these conversations myself.
Wonderful. Now, as you introduced me, yes, my book is called Business as Unusual. So the question that I absolutely have to ask you is, what is the most unusual experience that you've ever had in your career so far?
Ooh, well, to think about this a little bit. There were some times where, where I mentioned that I had a poor self-confidence, and actually one of the weirdest things was during one of my early full-time jobs in tech. I was kind of every day I got the confirmation that yes, I wasn't good enough. Every day I got the confirmation that I was doing something wrong, but nobody took the time to show me how to do it right. They were just saying, oh yeah, you're doing it wrong. And then when I transitioned to the next stage, it was like, oh yeah, this is going to be really difficult. This is going to be really tough. You'll have to step things up. But then nobody told me what to do. Nobody took one day, to guide me through everything and to tell me what I was supposed to be doing every day, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So I think that also contributed heavily to not being able to get out of that rut for a long time, because I mentioned before that now I got confirmation from people that wasn't the case, but during that time, it was every single day or most days I came home feeling like I wasn't enough, and that's in some cases that's an understatement. I usually had even darker thoughts. But then one of the interesting things, if I were to connect two different unusual career aspects that were happening at the same time. So I had the full-time job at that tech company, and then I had a part-time job during the weekends as a tourist guide here in Ljubljana, Slovenia. And it was mostly, just like spontaneous tours. It was rarely anything organized. So that meant that, sometimes I would have one person on the tour or two people, and sometimes I would have like 15 or 20 people. And I was super in the zone. I was telling them my own experiences from the city, because I lived in the center of Ljubljana for a lot of my life, and I have a lot of great memories from there. So I would tell people, this is where I did this is where this happened, this is where my mom's band played like X years ago.
Your mom's band?
Yeah, maybe that's a story for another episode. And anyway, so from Monday to Friday, I was given feedback that I was doing a really poor job, that I was weak, that I wasn't good enough. And then during the weekend, I got confirmation from the tour guests that like, oh my God, you're such a natural at this. So I can't believe that you've only been doing this for a month. You're so great. And so it was this weird balance of, it was kind of tough to work, a full-time job in addition to like 2 to 4 2-hour tours where you had to be really focused and really animating everybody during the weekend. But I think it would have been much tougher if I just had that one full-time job without the positive feedback from the great tour guests. So if anybody who was on one of my tours, it happens to be listening to this right now, thank you for giving me the confidence back then and the drive to keep moving forward despite, feeling like the odds were totally against me.
That's really interesting what you said there. There are two things
Hmm.
that I want to highlight, two insights from that really. The first is in your early career, in those tech jobs, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had no mentor,
Yeah.
you had no guide. There was no one you could turn to for advice. It's like, you did wrong. Okay, fine, but what am I supposed to do right? I got no idea. So that's very negative. That's a very downward spiral. So
Hmm.
it sort of highlights the importance of having a mentor. Doesn't
Hmm.
matter who the mentor is, doesn't matter where they are, whether it's in your team, your organization or not, but to have one, it's a sounding board and it can, help you reevaluate where you are. That's one thing. The other one is if an individual is clearly unhappy in their job role, whatever it is, a balance can be found by finding something outside
Hmm.
your job, maybe in your non-work time or whatever you want to call it, that counterbalances the negativity maybe of your job.
Hmm.
Okay. And as you said, you gave a perfect example of how to do that. You found something outside your current role, okay, in whatever that company was, whatever that job role was, in doing something else that you actually really enjoyed. And you got that acknowledgement and you got that positive feedback. And that helped balance the situation. And that is true, I think, for anybody in their career. If your current job role does not give you, okay, everything, there's some
Hmm.
elements missing, you have to seek it elsewhere.
Yeah.
You have to. And then you can get it's you as an individual doing that balance. So anyway, so that was the most unusual experience you've had in your career. Okay, let's throw this career to the side. Don't throw it away. Just put it aside. What's your most unusual experience just in life outside your job?
Oh man, there are so many unusual experiences. But to kind of connect everything, one really positively unusual experience was this past summer where I kind of broke through my comfort zone and kind of forced myself to go to some outdoor musical festivals that I was kind of really not into because I was always worried, about all the potential things that could go wrong. And
Mhm,
then I ended up going to an awesome like festival near a castle. It's called Floating Castle Festival here in Slovenia.
mhm,
And it was, just the most amazing and mind-blowing 4 days of my life where I had like transformational experiences,
mhm,
like, I don't know, reconciling and making amends with
mhm,
someone that I was really, really had a grudge against for like over 10 years. And I was just kind of forced and forcibly put into a situation where I had no other choice but to, make amends with them. Stuff like that, meeting people. That was kind of the turning point where I realized that everything that I've been doing so far was on the right track. And it was unusual because you have great days in your life, you have a few perfect days in your life, but that whole experience was just like every day so much happened. Every day there were so many
mhm,
perfect things, and the things
mhm,
that seemed like the worst thing to happen at that festival actually turned out to be the most amazing thing to happen at that festival. Like
Ooh,
like when I learned that that person that I had a grudge against was going to be staying like right next to our tent. I was like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? But deep down, I knew, okay, I know why this is happening, but why is this happening? Why is this happening?
mhm,
But
mhm,
then I saw that everything just the universe kind of conspired to make things work as they did. And I've had like ever since coming back from that festival, my laughter and my laugh has been much more genuine, much more heartfelt,
mhm,
much louder than, for the past 15 years or so. So it was transformational
mhm,
and it was unusual in that sense that, it led to a lot of stuff and a lot of experiences that I already kind of resigned myself to never have again. But, that breakthrough during the castle, you know, so it was also kind of, so now if you were to ask me about my castle, I would probably have references to that, to the floating castle, to the stuff that happened there. Yeah, that was probably one of the most unusual things and one of the most also noteworthy things to mention here that has happened to me, especially in the past year, because, you know, I'm also, I also have this belief that you know, you have different lives throughout your life, right? So you know, maybe for this life that I'm living right now, this has been the most unusual experience, but maybe for some previous lives, I would choose some different experiences.
Ooh, okay. So two things there. So you're in a tent, finding the person in the tent next door is someone that you have a problem with.
Yeah.
A very, very historic one. So I guess something positive came out of it because, you know, if you had ended up trying to kill him or something, you probably wouldn't be on the podcast.
Oh, no.
You're locked up. So did you reconcile? Yeah?
Yes, we had normal talks, we shared a laugh together, and now every time I see that person, I'm actually happy to see them. And like the last time they didn't see me, and I saw them, and I stepped up to them and I said hi, and I shook their hand and everything. And so I really like, now it's not just that, okay, I'm okay with this person. It's like, oh, I actually have this certain degree of satisfaction and happiness when I see them and when I talk to them. So this has been wonderful. And I have my best friend actually to thank for this, because he was kind of the one whose mishap was responsible for that person setting up their tent right next to ours. So a very valuable life lesson right there, that some of the most fulfilling moments and experiences in your life come from mistakes, you know, come from somebody making something that is totally screwing up the moment, so to speak. But then if you're confident enough, if you're capable enough, you have the potential to turn that around. And actually, this is a perfect circle back to the beginning of the conversation. You need to be your own architect of change. You know, no matter what life throws at you, you're the one who is able to dictate how this situation will play out. You know, I could have you know, doubled down on the grudge, but I just you know, I had this moment where I had this huge feeling of empathy for this person, and I think that kind of turned things around.
Okay, you brought up the, you know, that's it. That's architect of change. You know, every day our actions, big or small, shape our future.
Yes.
So something happened. Arch enemy number one is next door. What am I? How am I going to react to it? Okay. Or so you're going to react, which is go and try and kill him or something. Which no, that's not supposed to happen. Or you can pause and work out what your response is going to be. Okay. And it sounds like your response was, okay, let it go. Forgive them for whatever it was. You know, go shake their hands. They're just another person at the festival. What's the problem?
And my life has been better off since then for it. And so to maybe to have some final words to everybody listening right now, you know, going beyond your comfort zone in such a way is more than just worthwhile. It's necessary. And as Rick said, you need to be the architect of your own life, the architect of change. You need to be the catalyst of change. You said in the beginning that we all have the potential for this, but you said in our original conversation, not just the potential, but the obligation to architect your own reality. So, you know, I'm testifying here as proof of how, you know, you're able to turn things around if you commit yourself to it.
Wonderful. I couldn't have said it any better. Now, the other thing, you talked music festival, so I have to ask you, all right, what would be your walk-on song?
Walk on stage song.
Yeah.
If I were to perform.
Yeah, they're just even on your podcast. You don't have music introducing you, but if you could have music to introduce you, yay, this is Tim. What would that walk-on theme song be?
Well, it would either be one of my own songs, or it could be, do you know Bella Fleck and the Flecktones? Maybe?
No, no. You can
There's
try
a
and sing it if you want.
no, it's an instrumental.
Or will that put all your followers off?
But we can, for anybody who's interested, we'll put a link to my favorite performance of that song in the show notes so that you can get a little bit of a taste for it. And it's basically, it's a live version that I love the most because like the recording is so well done. The melody is so positive, it's basically like the main instruments are the banjo and like the bass virtuoso Victor Wooten and a really awesome saxophone player, and it all just blends together so perfectly. And then after everybody gets their solo and after everybody does their unique thing, they return, they circle back to the original theme of the song, and the audience just goes wild and everybody just starts clapping, and like I get such a feeling of fulfillment from that. And so it would either be that, like a theme song of my life or something like that, or it would be like the songs I make. Probably if you ask my best friend, he would have some other ideas, like there's this he says that there's this certain aspect of music that's like this Tim aspect, that like a lot of the songs that I send to him or that I make is like, yeah, I know why you, Tim, you particular person, love this particular song.
Okay, so maybe that's a theme tune or something that you need to bring on the podcast. So when it comes on, everybody goes wild. The crowd goes wild.
Well, coincidentally, I did choose the music for the intro for the podcast. That was I really love doing that. So I think that it's also kind of it's in line. Like the intro music for the podcast is a Tim themed music.
Ooh, okay. So, all right. Now, you've shared an awful lot today. I really appreciate that. And I hope all your listeners or our listeners really appreciate that as well. Now, you've obviously been through a journey, finding yourself, building up your confidence, changing, transforming, all of that kind of stuff. What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone just starting out in their career? What would it be?
Keep going forward, keep improving yourself, keep working on yourself, and like do so while trying to discover your life purpose so that you know which direction you're supposed to go in, so that you're not like Alice in Wonderland, to use your previous metaphor. So that would be the one thing, I guess.
Wonderful, wonderful. And all right, I'll ask one more question before actually I'll give you your podcast back to you. But so what's one question that you wish I'd have asked you, but I failed to ask you? I didn't ask you. And whatever that question was, how would you have answered it?
Well, we talked a little bit about flow state. But I think that like I was kind of prepared to talk a little bit more about it, but we already moved to other things. So one thing that I kind of was missing maybe from this discussion, if I absolutely had to choose something, it would be like the relationship between the flow state and going beyond your comfort zone, and like if that is possible. And I think that I think you need some degree of comfort to be in the flow state, but you need to go beyond your comfort zone to discover where you should direct your flow state, because it's obviously that much easier to get into a state of flow and to achieve a state of flow if you're doing what you love doing, if you're doing something that aligns with your mission, with your life purpose. So yes, flow can only occur once you're feeling at ease, once you're feeling confident in yourself. It's very hard to get into a flow state if you're suffering from imposter syndrome or something. But you do have to suffer maybe a bit from imposter syndrome to find your flow, and so it's a weird relationship, I guess, but there definitely is one. And I just think that you can't have one without the other. But also a flow state will maybe make it easier for you once you're outside of your comfort zone, and they play off each other, I say.
Wonderful. I mean, you just sort of summed it up very, very well. So there's just a final thing that I want to say before I hand your show back to you. And it's the thought that, remember, we're not just participants in this ever-changing world, this crazy world that we may be in, but we are these architects. We are shaping the course of our lives, our careers. You've just explained it there, okay? And it's not just our own lives, it's the world around us, okay? But, look what you did with the high school reunion. You're impacting all these other people. So, I really wish to continue to encourage people, just embrace the change, but define it, okay? Rather than just react and adapt to it. Be that catalyst in your business as unusual world. Feel free to reach out to me, okay, because I'm really, really interested in hearing about your journeys. So, Tim, it's your show. You can have it back now.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you for stealing it in the first place. I really enjoyed being on the other side, still being the host, but getting interviewed by the guest. This was a completely new experience for me. And in the context of going beyond my comfort zone, this was definitely a step beyond my comfort zone. But I think that we had an awesome conversation. I think that even though I was mostly focusing on sharing my own personal experiences and personal stuff, still listeners will be able to get a lot from this. And so really thank you, Rick, for the great questions, for being such a great interviewer. And well, I guess we'll have to do another episode where we both interview each other or something. We'll have a talk about that.
Yeah, we can do that. That will be another business as unusual thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rick. This was a great note to finish on. And, to our listeners, that's all for this episode. Have a great day, everyone, and stay safe.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to check out our other episodes, you can find all of them at agiledrop.com/podcast, as well as on all the most popular podcasting platforms. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes, and don't forget to share the podcast with your friends and colleagues.